On this edition of Gameball College Kickoff, we're going to recap the 4 matchups that was championship weekend in college football. In our second segment, it's officially here. The 4-team college playoff has been set. Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. We're also in our third segment have those predictions, but also it has been made official according to multiple sources. After 27 years, Kansas State football coach Bill Snyder has decided to call it a career. We'll talk about that and also who should be his predecessor to that head coaching position. And of course, like I just mentioned in our third segment, we'll talk about the 14 college playoff. And of course, we'll have our predictions. Once again, Luke Hartnett is not here with us, but of course, we're going to hold it down for our brother. But it's going down. Gameball College Kickoff begins now. What's happening, everyone? Welcome to Gameball College Kickoff, where the football season never ends. I'm Marcus Young Genius Jenkins.
It's your boy, Michael Riley.
And, of course, we're going to hold it down for Luke Hartnett, who couldn't be here with us again. But, of course, Luke, shout out to you. We got you. We'll have his predictions also in the third segment of the 14 college playoff. Of course, how we always do it in the first segment, we're going to recap the top 4 matchups that was championship week in college football, starting with the first 2 I want to point out to you. We'll also discuss those in a little bit more detail here very shortly. Starting with Texas and Oklahoma, which turned out to be a great game. Oklahoma winning 39-27, and who would have thought, and we talked about this for the last couple of weeks, the Big 12 and the possibility of making it to the college playoff. Lo and behold, the Big 12 is indeed represented after, of course, the Michigan loss to Ohio State, which kind of left that spot open, up for grabs, and Oklahoma, who played great, especially over the last 4 weeks. No question about it, well-deserving of that berth. Alabama and Georgia.
Man.
We got to talk about this game.
Well, we will. We'll just go down through the other scores. Let's get to that part.
We got to talk about this. Clemson, no surprise here. I don't think anybody really picked Pittsburgh to upset Clemson.
Nah.
Clemson being themselves, business as usual, 42-10 was the score over Pittsburgh. Northwestern and Ohio State beating number 21 Northwestern by a score of 45-24. Now let's get into the top 2 games, shall we?
Let's do it.
Oklahoma, once again beating Texas. This time when it mattered the most, the Big 12 championship, 39-27. How did Oklahoma get it done, Mike?
Rematch part 2 of the Red River rivalry. And Oklahoma, when it counted, was the victor over the Texas Longhorns. So congratulations to them. Oklahoma knew what was at stake. They knew they cannot lose. They knew they could not let the emotions get into this game, even though it's a rivalry, the Red River rivalry part 2. But Oklahoma understood in their veterans, and they want to make it 4 straight Big 12 titles. That hasn't been done since the mid-'90s when Florida did it when Steve Spurrier was the head coach back then. So Oklahoma did what they did, even though it wasn't pretty, but you got to give it to them, man. Defense played a little bit better this time than previous games. They surrendered 27 points, but at the end, they made the plays that they need to be made, and especially that key interception to end the game when Texas was marching down to try to score twice, but interception, key player by the Oklahoma Sooners defensive back was able to make that interception off a tip drill. That's what you taught, that's what you're supposed to do. Overall, Kyler Murray, he is something special.
I would agree.
He is better than Baker Mayfield 2.0. This is a Kyler Murray show. I mean, he is athletic. He runs when he needs to. And for what I noticed this year, he doesn't run as much, but only when he needs to. He's accurate throwing the ball in the pocket. He sees everything. If it's not there, he's so quick, he turn his way, bam. He'll throw it that way. He'll look you off this way. That way, the defensive backs and the safeties in the middle will be occupied and have one-on-one matchup, and that one-on-one matchup will win. So kudos to Oklahoma. They knew what they were getting into, and Lincoln Riley kept them focused and kept them calm and collected. We cannot let the emotions get the best of us. Right now, let's just focus on winning the Big 12 and let the outcome predict if we got in. They took care of business and did what they did, and that's deserved them to get into the college football playoff in the last spot. We'll talk about that in the second segment, but Oklahoma, you can't give enough credit. They did their thing. Offense, defense, special teams, they did what they needed to do to win this game. In Texas, they had their moments, but it seems like Texas was more of trying to get another win and not they weren't trying to get another win, but there wasn't focus as Oklahoma. See, they got lucky with that first meeting, and they thought they can go it again. At one point, it was toe-to-toe, but Texas made a mistake, and they also had turnovers, and they didn't play to their potential. This team has talent, but at the moment, they wasn't ready. Oklahoma was ready, because Oklahoma displayed that we've been here a number of times, and this time, we're not going to let you beat us. And that's exactly what Oklahoma did. And Kyler Murray, he is a front runner to win the Heisman. And as should be, he should be the Heisman winner due to his statistic and the way to contribute ball to the players. Overall, Oklahoma just was the better team, and they showed that, and they dominated last portion of the game where they needed to. They was down early, but they wasn't rattled. They just found a way to settle down and play Oklahoma football, and that's what they did, and that's what got them to the 14 college playoffs. So congratulations to the Sooners. Texas is on the rise to win the Big 12, but not this year. It's Oklahoma's year. So congratulations to the Sooners.
Big win once again, and not only did you get bragging rights for your rivalry, but also you beat your rival for the Big 12 championship. So bragging rights times two
is even sweeter than the first game that they lost.
Absolutely.
You won the battle, but at the end, Oklahoma won the war. That means the Big 12 title and a trip to the college football playoff.
Big win for the Sooners. Now the second game that we got to talk about this one. Mike, I'm gonna have to ask you because late in the game, you were in a comfortable spot. It seemed like late in the fourth quarter, you were up 28-14, and then you allowed the Sooners to make a 20.
You made that cry, Alabama Crimson Tide.
Huh?
You said Sooners.
Sorry, the Crimson Tide. You let them go on a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter. This is the second year in a row.
I was just about to go there.
They exposed Alabama for the second year in a row, and when it mattered, and you blew it for the second year in a row. And Nick Saban, do you say good coaching with this win by Alabama, or how did Alabama make this big run and win the SEC championship?
It was good coaching. I think Georgia, when they was at the 14-point swing, relaxed. And you can't relax against an Alabama team. You got to put your foot to the metal. You got to keep going.
You just played
on the third down and 1 or 2, or it was manageable. Why didn't call a pass? You call a run. You can't do that. And as an offensive coordinator, and when I was watching the game, I was like, what are you doing? Why would you call that? And when you call that, that was a momentum changer that Alabama needed. You knew that you had to stay aggressive. You got to pass the ball against it. You cannot, you don't want to bend the running game, but come on. This is it. This is everything. You want your revenge, and Georgia had it, but they let the foot off the gas, and they was too conservative. That's 2 years in a row. Also 2 years in a row, the quarterback switched.
Yep.
Last year it was Jalen Hurts to Tula, the freshman. Then he won a national championship. Now it's Tula who got hurt and went back to Jalen Hurts, and they won. So it was a repeating a curse that happened for Georgia all over again. And for Jalen Hurts, this was a big moment for him because all that he went through and the benching and people talk about he could leave, he stuck it out there and he was a real teamer to where his number was called upon. He took took upon himself and delivered that win and showed that he wanted it more. This is my time. This is redemption for me. So at that moment, he delivered. And Jalen Hurts, he might transfer or not, but it was kudos to him how the way he handled things.
Absolutely. To
where things was kind of going down south, but he was able to handle it. He was able to put his pride aside. He was like, I'm going to ride this one out. And it showed. So that's why Alabama was in. And plus, it was great coaching by Nick Saban, who is the disciple of Belichick. So those two are the greatest coaches that ever did it, one in college and one in pro. So it was coaching by Nick Saban. And it was a lot of coaching on Georgia's part because you had a 14-point lead. This is 2 years in a row. You had a double-digit lead against your nemesis, and you could not capitalize. And they let the foot off the gas. You cannot let the foot off the gas. You got to keep going, keep control of the clock. If they would have scored that touchdown or a field goal, Alabama would not have won that game. I guarantee you that. So overall, Alabama did what Alabama does. They got in. Georgia didn't. And redemption for Jalen Hurts and Alabama's defense showed up when they needed to. But they're going to have to show up against Oklahoma because Oklahoma ain't no pushover. Despite their defense, their offense is top 5 in the country of scoring. So we'll talk about that in the predictions later. But overall, Alabama did what they needed to do against Georgia, and Georgia failed to capitalize, and it showed, and that's their own fault, and they paid for it for not making it to the college football playoff. That hurt them twice this year.
And what was one point that we talked about last week, and that was, what did both of these coaches learn from a year ago? And I feel like that got exposed in the fourth quarter. Because, like you mentioned, like we both said, this is the second time that you blew it. You had Alabama, on their heels. You had them beat. All you had to do at this point was basically close them out, and you could not get it done. And instead, you allowed to go on a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter.
You basically went for jab instead of going for the haymaker, the knockout punch. That one punch you needed to deliver a blow, and you failed to blow it. And Alabama just took advantage of it. And it showed, so it's on Georgia. And Georgia is going to have to learn playing against Alabama. You cannot settle for less. You got to go be aggressive, and you got to go for it all. And as the offensive coordinator, you knew that, and you still failed to be aggressive. You want to be aggressive later, but you had to keep that momentum going from the first half. We can't let the foot off the pass, especially at the 20-yard line, third and management. You could have called a screen. You could have called a slant and kick the first down. You had Alabama on their heels, and it shows. So now, if I'm the other teams, I would take a look at the Georgia game against Alabama and see you try to expose them.
All right, and that's going to do it for our first segment. Coming up in the second part, we're going to talk about the 4 teams that made it into the playoffs. Did the playoff committee get it right? And also, we'll talk about the retirement of the great Bill Snyder, as he is set to announce his retirement from Kansas State. And we'll also talk about who should replace Bill Snyder at the helm in Manhattan. Stick around, Gameball calls Kickoff. We'll be back in a moment. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to Gameball College Kickoff, where the football season never ends. Now in the second segment, 14 college playoffs, as we all know, has been set. Alabama, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Clemson. Did the committee get it right, Mike?
Yes, they did. Finally, I can actually agree with the committee. But some would say, are they the best teams? No. Some of, well, at least one or two are not. But at the end of the day, they got it right, and I don't know why it took this long to decide, but the first three was automatic. If Notre Dame went out, they got in. Alabama went, they got in. Of course, Clemson got in. We all knew that. But the fourth slot, and there was speculation about would Georgia, with a two-loss team, be put in there, and the committee did the right thing by putting Oklahoma with a one-loss over them, and you didn't want to have a big uproar. In Ohio State, they had a loss, but which loss looked better? Oklahoma's 3-point loss against their rival Texas, or Ohio State 29 loss against Purdue last week, who made it to the bowl game by a win, barely. So they got it right, and in the future, they should expand it to the 18 playoff, because this is second year in a row UCF went undefeated, won their conference, and they didn't get in. But if they beat LSU in a New Year's Bowl game, that will raise some eyebrows of we need to take a better picture of UCF getting it in. So if they want to do it better, schedule some tough teams. Not these Rudy Poo small, easy teams. Schedule tough teams. You want the best of the elite. Just put like week 1, Alabama versus Clemson, Georgia versus Oklahoma, or LSU versus USC. Something like that, to where different conferences can compete against each other. It will make the 4-team selection a little easier. Okay, Ohio State versus Washington. Just put that in there for future reference. So that way it can look a lot better and won't be as difficult as making a selection to put teams in. But that's another topic for another day. Overall, they got it right. And the best teams are the teams that won their conference and how bad they lost. So Oklahoma, no surprise, they're the deserving team to get in. It's just that the loss against Texas looked a lot better than what Ohio State to Purdue. Now, if Ohio State would have at least lost by 2-3 points, then you had a different argument. And also the way that you looked against Maryland, that was a no-brainer either. Like, you won by 1 point against Maryland, you got your Bucks kept by 29 points against Purdue. So we're not going to reward you for that, even though you had one loss. And the committee did get it right. It should be the top 4 teams: Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma. If Oklahoma would have got in, it would have been a big uproar. But committee did not want to go through that again. So they was like, okay, we'll put Oklahoma in, since even though their defense is terrible, but they only lost by 3 points against Texas, to what Ohio State lost to Purdue by 29 points. Overall, they got it right. And what are your thoughts on it?
I'm in total agreement. I thought they got it right. And it's funny that you mentioned, I said the same thing when I saw that. I was like, for the first time, I can actually agree with them. Because usually there is a snub or two that should have got in. Georgia blew their chance. And I think if they would have beat Alabama, honestly, let me ask you this. Do you think if Alabama would have lost against Georgia, do you think they still would have got in?
Of course. It's because the politics. Right. And their conference they're in, they get more notoriety than anybody. And everything has to include Alabama. I'm just being brutally honest. I'm not knocking on the program. I'm just knocking on the way that the system is. That's the only thing I'm knocking on, is the system. So they would have got in regardless if they would have lost. So overall, the committee did right. And I feel like this year they went into the right direction of putting teams that are in, that they won their conference. So it was a no-brainer. And I actually finally say I can agree with the playoff committee for once.
Yes.
They got it right of putting these 4 teams in. And I can't now wait to break down this matchup. I can't wait to, in a few weeks, to see who's going to the championship game. I'm excited. Oklahoma versus Alabama, and we'll talk about that later. In Notre Dame versus Clemson,
I think that's a sleeper one. I think that's a sleeper.
That is
because I know everybody's gonna sleep on Notre Dame because it's Clemson, and Clemson, of course, rightfully so, has been destroying everybody. They're playing like Clemson. Yeah. One more thing I do want to ask you is this: if they do expand it, and you mentioned wins and losses and scheduling better games. If they do expand this playoff, do you think, because like Alabama's schedule wasn't the greatest this year. Let's put it out there.
No.
Their schedule was not they had that LSU game, but before your championship, you played the Citadel. Who pays it? I mean, with all due respect, who really pays attention to the Citadel football
Nobody.
program? So what I'm saying is, do you think that's because a lot of these top 25 teams play it safe and they put these little nitpick games up in there? Do you think the NCAA should be a little more lenient as far as your wins and losses? Because we know that's what Alabama, teams like Clemson, like Ohio State, they recruit and they practice in the offseason and in the summer for perfection. That one loss can ruin your whole season. Do you think that they should be a little bit more lenient as far as a win and loss record, depending on who you lose to, though?
I think they should, and I think the scheduling should bring down the hammer on what teams you should play. And if UCF, I think, my opinion, should get in, schedule teams against UCF in the season. Schedule, like, for instance, okay, let's say for giggles, let's say LSU, UCF in week 1 early beginning. I'll be fine with that. UCF against a very good team in the ACC, I'm fine with that. UCF against Oklahoma, I'm fine with that. They want to prove themselves they can compete with the best. Because last year, they blew the brakes off of Auburn.
Yes, they did.
And they playing LSU. If they beat LSU, you have no choice but to put them in consideration. So they should be leniently, but they also should make the schedule a lot tougher than what it is, and stop putting these Rudy Poo teams that they just gonna blow their waters off. If you want to beat the best, you gotta compete with the best to beat the best, and I think that is the part of lacking of the schedule makers.
Hey, I'm in full agreement with that, 100%. Now, the second topic we're going to talk about in this segment, like we've been mentioning, Coach Kansas State Bill Snyder, the head coach, has decided to announce his retirement. And it's funny because we talked about this last week, and that was whether Bill Snyder should retire or what, or should he keep coaching. And it's funny that we both agreed that maybe it's time for him to ride from the sunset. With all due respect, he owes nothing else to Kansas State. If anything, for the rest of our lives, Manhattan should be in total debt to Bill Snyder and what he's done to that program. He announced his retirement. So, Mike, I'm going to ask you this. What are your thoughts on his retirement? And then also, who should be named the next head coach at Kansas State?
Well, it was time for him to go because the last couple of seasons, you saw it was starting to decline. Even though they made a bowl game last year and won, but this season, they had a lot of expectations. Now, if they would have made a bowl game, it would have been a different conversation. But it was time. The time was right. And you can tell that the coaching part is starting to take its toll on him for his age. I mean, he wanted to coach forever, but you get to the point to where family matters. I think he wants to spend time with more of the grandkids and his wife and all that, and due to last year, he lost his grandson. So you have to put that to perspective, and it's time to walk away. I mean, he wanted to win a national championship so bad. That was the only thing missing for him. He had his chances, but he didn't make it. But for Bill Snyder, he's extraordinarily a great coach, but he's a great man.
Absolutely.
I mean, the community that he does for Manhattan is just like, he goes out his way for people. And you do not hear coaches do that often. But with Bill Snyder, he's already the College Football Hall of Fame. It's just one of those things that he hang his head up high and knew that it was time for him to ride out the sunset. Now for the coaching, it's going to be kind of difficult to get a coach because now you Purdue's Brahman State, you still got Dave Doran for North Carolina State. What he's going to do. You got Neil Bound for Troy. We'll see what he's going to do because there's going to be a lot of hot candidates that teams is going to overpay to get that coach. And I think that's going to be tough for K-State. And also, knowing that K-State, all they know is Bill Snyder. How would they adapt to another coach? Because we saw that with Ron Prince and it didn't work out as well. And they call him back out of retirement. But this time he's hanging up for good. And it's going to be very difficult for K-State to find a head coach because when Bill Snyder came in '88, it was a disaster. But he knew that you put the time and effort and you start building around around the football program, it will take some time. For instance, I'm going to throw out there with KU. They did not waste no time. They knew exactly what they wanted, and they pinpointed, and they jumped on it immediately because we all know early recruiting starts this month in December. That's going to take it to effect. You have to hurry and find a head coach to get in that. But who's going to be the head coach now, we don't know. So they better act now and fast because names is going to be start popping like wildflowers, and teams are going to be jumping in to overpay, especially bigger conferences like the SEC, for instance. You got some of the Pac-12. You also got who's going to be the next Texas Tech head coach over Cliff Kingsbury. You also got Colorado as well. So, and they it's going to come down to the bidding war. Who's going to offer more money to get a coach? So K-State is at a tough spot right now, and it's going to take us some time to find a head coach. But overall, despite rivalry, Bill Snyder was a damn of a hell of a good coach, and he should be recognized as one of the greats. He was also a great man, a great human being, and humanitarian display his leadership. It was not just about football. It was just about academics, life after football, being a family man. And that's what Bill Snyder coached to his team and to his players. So it's sad to say to see Bill Snyder go, but it was the right time at the right moment for him to call it quits because of this season you saw the struggles. So overall, it was the right time for him to go.
One thing I do want to ask you in regards to this topic, do you think because obviously whoever's hired as Kansas State's head coach, they're going to have some major shoes to fill, and there's no question about that. Do you see Kansas State taking their time with this decision and trying to find the right coach, or because of where they're at right now and some notable names out there, they're going to try to do a quick find? And try
they're going to have to take their time because, like I was saying, you got bigger universities with more money go after coaches. And luckily for bringing this up for Cliff Kingsbury, he's USC offensive coordinator. And USC did not waste no time of hiring him as an offensive coordinator. So you're going to start seeing bigger schools in different conferences with more money going after coaches. So it's going to take some time for K-State to get a coach. They could have found one in a way, but right now it's just like, okay, they have to act now if they want a big name coach. But you're going to start seeing other teams going after big name coaches as well, especially with bigger schools who are recognized and who establish themselves. And so you're going to start seeing Texas Tech, Colorado, and other schools that need a coach going after coaches.
All right. Once again, definitely we give our big salute and a congratulations to a spectacular career. Bill Snyder, once again, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and we both agree. You know, it was definitely his time. He owes nothing else to that university and to that football program.
He dedicated his time. He dedicated his 27 years to that university and K-State in that program. So, and they got highways named after him. They got streets named after him, and they got a stadium named after him. So he owes nothing to K-State.
100% agreement. And definitely, the Kansas State Wildcats and that athletic director definitely has some work cut out for him to try to find that replacement. It's going to be interesting to find somebody that's going to be willing to try to fill those shoes. I mean, though we know it's impossible to fill those shoes, but at least attempt to try to follow in those footsteps.
Because Bill Snyder did a lot for that program and that community, so it's going to be tough.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for our second segment. Coming up in our third segment, we are going to talk about the college football playoff, break down those 4 teams, as well as give you our predictions. Stick around. We're just now getting started. Gameball calls kickoff. We'll be back in one moment. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to Gameball College Kickoff. Now in our third and final segment, we are going to break down the college football playoff and the 4 teams, starting with, I think, the heavyweight of the 2 on paper, that is, by the way, and that is Oklahoma and Alabama. Mike, what do you think about this matchup?
In my opinion, it's going to be a high-scoring game because Oklahoma has no defense, and Alabama has a defense, but they have a hard time controlling dual quarterbacks. And with Georgia, it showed that they had a hard time keeping up with Georgia's offense. But I think they're going to have a much tougher time keeping up with Oklahoma's offense because Oklahoma's offense is no pushover. They can score points at will, especially with Kyler Murray. He gets rid of a ball so quick, you don't know what hit him. You think you have him in the backfield. He's too quick going this way and going that way, and look, a receiver down the field, he's throwing the ball's out the hand. There's nothing you can do about it. So Alabama's defense is going to have a hard time against Oklahoma's offense. But can Oklahoma's defense stop Alabama's offense, whoever is playing quarterback? We don't know. So ever since they fired Mike Stoops as the defensive coordinator, their defense got worse. But they stepped up big against Texas in the Big 12 championship. Will that carry over to get the upset win? We don't know, but I can't wait to see towards the end of the month. So it's going to be interesting, but it's going to see which team at the end will have less turnovers to win that game. It's going to come down to that.
I agree. And the quarterback tool for Alabama is at least they're hoping he's going to be okay within the 2 weeks. So he does have that time frame to rest. So we'll definitely see what happens. If not, if something does happen to happen, they're not particularly in bad shapes with Jalen Hurts either, as you saw in the SEC championship. So either way, they have a good quarterback at center. So that's going to be a great matchup. The second matchup, which I think will be a sleeper, because we know Clemson's offense is dynamic. There's nothing you can do defensively so far has been proven that you can stop their offense. Notre Dame comes in. First of all, nobody even expected Notre Dame at the beginning of the season to even be at this point. They've played fantastic, consistent football, and here they are in the college football playoff. Tell us what you think about this matchup.
Well, it's going to be, I'm looking at Notre Dame's offense versus Clemson's secondary. Because at times, Clemson's secondary could get exposed at certain things, but Notre Dame has a good quarterback who will try to take a matchup against Clemson's secondary, and plus Notre Dame's receivers is a lot taller, so they can win the one-on-one matchups. Because Clemson, what they like to do, they like to bring different type of blitzes, disguised linebacker blitzes, and sometimes corner blitzes as well. But this time, you're going to have to make adjustments into Notre Dame's playing style. You're going to, instead of bringing blitzes off the time, you're going to have to play 4-man rush or a 3-man rush and drop everybody back in coverage. That's going to make it a lot difficult for Notre Dame to succeed offensively in the passing game. So Clemson's defensive line is top-notch in the country right now, no doubt about that. But it's going to be concerning with their secondary. I mean, this secondary can ball, but sometimes they like to be more aggressive. So I want to see Notre Dame's offense against Clemson's secondary. But how would Notre Dame's defense stop Clemson's offense with that young freshman Trevor Lawrence? I mean, once they get going, they can hit you anywhere. And special teams is going to be the key, because Clemson is the top 10 team in special teams, kickoff and punt return touchdowns, and it has shown this season. So it's going to be a good fun matchup to watch. But which team will rise up, Notre Dame's offense or Clemson's defense? That's the matchup that I'm looking forward to.
All right, and with that being said, we are going to move on to the predictions part of this segment, starting with Oklahoma and Alabama. Mike, who do you and Luke have?
Luke has Alabama winning. I also have Alabama winning in the shootout. It's going to be a shootout game, but I think Alabama defensively will make 1 to 2 key plays to win that game. So it's going to be a shootout, but I'm going to say Alabama wins. I'm going to say the score of, I'm going to say 51 to 45. Alabama beats Oklahoma.
I think that's a fair score. And I think what it's going to come down to for me is it's going to come down to coaching late. And Nick Saban has seen everything thrown at him. And I think this win over Georgia, I think is going to help him against the Sooners, because look, they were down, and they were basically down for the count, and they made a 21-0 run to beat Georgia in the SEC championship. I think that boosted the confidence of Alabama, and I think it definitely made Nick Saban kind of go back to the drawing board and made him figure out, it's going to make him figure out what can we do different. I mean, granted, Oklahoma and Georgia are different, but I agree with you. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I got Alabama winning as well.
Now, if Oklahoma would have had a respectable defense, it could have been different, but they don't have a respectable defense. So that's why I'm picking Alabama to edge Oklahoma in the first round of the playoffs.
All right. And the second matchup, Notre Dame versus Clemson. Who do you and Luke got?
Luke got Clemson, and I got Clemson as well. Yes, there's some exposure to Clemson's secondary to defense, but I feel like Clemson's been here long enough. It's their 4th straight year, and how they lost against Alabama last year, it still stings. Players did not come back for this year to lose. They come back to win, and they want to win. They want to go out on a good note. They want to go out undefeated. They want to repeat as second-time national championship in the span of 3 years. So I got Clemson winning. I'm going to say 40-30 over Notre Dame. It'll be close early, but Clemson in the second half, it's a different breed of team.
I strongly agree with that. I got Clemson winning as well. I just think offensively they just have too much on Notre Dame. A fantastic season. I'm glad to see personally Notre Dame. I've been watching Notre Dame football since I was a kid. So to be able to see them back, in my opinion, where they belong is great to see, but I just think it's Clemson's year. It's
not a knock on Notre Dame, but I feel like Clemson has a superior talent than Notre Dame.
Absolutely. And obviously, we both picked, or all three of us picked Alabama and Clemson, which means those two would be moving on to the national championship. Clemson and Alabama, who do you and Luke got?
Clemson and Alabama part 4. And we both got Clemson avenging the loss against Alabama, because the way that they lost against Alabama last year, it was a disaster. But I feel like this year they're gonna it's a better team and with a better quarterback. Nothing against Kelly Bryant, but this is Trevor Lawrence. He's a better quarterback and a better passer than what he was. And he delivered balls quick. And he can scramble, too, when he needs to. I mean, watching this kid, Trevor Lawrence, is special. He makes the Clemson offense go. He's willing to take this Clemson offense farther than what they are. So I say Clemson wins and rematch part 4 of this game. I say Clemson win. I say 48-44. It's like the Lakers versus the Boston Celtics. You got those great rivalry matchups that teams back in the day, and it's also like in the Super Bowl days back in the 70s, the Dallas Cowboys versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, the head-to-head matchup. So we're going to get that again, part 4.
And these are the 2 best teams they have been all season. And I did say this like all year long. I was like, Alabama has been playing great, but I don't know if they want to see Clemson, because Clemson has a better offense than Georgia to begin with. I can't see Alabama doing enough. If they get into a deficit against Clemson, I don't know if they will have enough to be able to outscore Clemson.
And plus, the way that Clemson lost last year, their defense, this is personal for their defense, real personal. And they want Alabama so bad. If it's a part 4 again, they want to punch Alabama in the mouth, because we gave up. It was an embarrassment performance on their defense, and they know that. That's what kept them hungry, and that's what they kept it going. And it's going to show in part 4 that Clemson will have the overall better team than Alabama. And that's why I'm rolling with Clemson to win its second national title in 3 years.
Part of me does want to kind of pick Alabama, but I just think Alabama just has too much offensively. So I'm going to say Clemson. I agree with you with the close score. I think that's fair as well. You said 44-40?
45-41.
Or 45-41. I think that's fair as well. I'm going to say somewhere around there. I'm going to say 38. I'm going to say 38-35 is what I got. But all 3 of us, we got Clemson rolling, national championship.
All right, that will do it for the college season episode. But after the national championship game, we'll come back for one more episode and break down the national championship. Also, way too early picks for the 14 college playoff. Social media, follow us out on Facebook, Gameball College Kickoff / Gameball NFL Info. Send us an email at gck.gnfle@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, on our official Twitter page at gck.gnfle. You can follow your boy, all caps, Gameball_Mike, MYKE. You can also follow us on our Instagram at gck_GNFLE. Get your merchandise on our calling line website at tokendesignstopeka.com/gameball. That's TOKAN designstopeka.com/gameball. That's token, not toucan, folks. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit my right, your right to your left, vice versa, at our YouTube channel at gck.gnfletv. But when you hit that subscribe button, be also hit that notification button as well to alert on our posting and updates. And I'll pass it on to you, my brother.
All right. Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Jovel Entertainment. Like the pages, follow us. You also see the podcast on there as well. I guarantee everybody new music will be coming into 2019, as well as the single Draped in Gold. Music video will be shot later on this month. Hopefully the weather will be good. We'll pray for that. Otherwise, we'll still get it done one way or the other.
Exactly.
But
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, everybody out there that supported us since day one, today, yesterday, whenever, thank you, because we could not do this without you. Thank you to our sponsors as well. Thank you for allowing us to follow our dream.
And we also got to give a big shout out to the Lawrence Public Library, who lets us do these type of episodes in their facility. Without this opportunity to do these episodes at the facility at the Lawrence Public Library here in Lawrence, Kansas, this would not be possible. So shout out to the Lawrence Public Library for letting us do this. And you also can't forget our other brother, Lou Harnett, to follow him at Facebook, Instagram as Lou Harnett, and on Twitter as Lou Harnett 2, folks. I'm Michael Riley.
Marcus Young Genius Jenkins.
This is Gameball College Kickoff, where the football season never is peace. We are out, and be ready for the installment of Gameball NFL End Zone, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sir.